Welcome everyone to my first more technical video on my game Gate. This is an action RPG. I've been developing solo for 13 months. So I usually do a progress video every 2 weeks, but I figure why not show some of the inner workings of the systems that I have this time around. So let's get into that. So in this video I'm going to talk about how I handle skills in my game. Just as a disclaimer though, this is probably not the best way to do it, neither it is the most efficient. Remember that I started this project 13 months ago, so I have learned a lot since then. I'm just going to show you what I did and what I do currently with my skills, how I implement new skills and how they work. Okay, the skill has 3 parts. The first part is a resource file. This file stores the skill behavior and determines things such as if it's a spell or an attack, what is the range, if it's a projectile, if it's an aura, if it's a minion, if it's a movement skill and which animation should be used, if it attaches to the caster or if it should be independent. This is the most important part of the tree because it determines the functionality and the behavior of the skill overall. You can often tell just by looking at the properties on the inspector which type of skill that is, so it makes it easier to modify. This is just a skill class that extends from resource, and you can just add more properties or groups of properties if you want to add a new behaviors type. So it makes it easy for me to implement new behaviors for new skills that I want to implement. So that is the first part. Okay, the second part of any skill is a dictionary entry. I call this the balance data. So this is a series of dictionaries stored in a class that hold more balance-oriented data such as cooldowns, mana costs, durations, as well as the damage, and all the scaling of those effects. For example, you can increase or decrease the monster's damage by tweaking its base damage, by the scaling or the threshold, which is basically how much it grows and how fast every level or every X levels. So this is probably the easiest part of this whole skill system. So here you basically just put the skill ID and then you put the what type of modifiers it should have. You can add things such as custom attack speed, cast speeds, increased damage. Basically any modifier that exists on the character can be put onto a skill. You can add on X modifiers such as on kill, on hit, on cooldown. You can add any type of custom modifier here. So for example, when you kill somebody with this specific skill, it's going to trigger something else, either a buff or a debuff, or it's going to spawn a skill or something like that. And you can scale every portion of this. So you can be reducing the cooldown of a skill as it levels, or you can be increasing it. You can be increasing the area, the damage, etc., etc. So it's a very powerful tool, and it's very simple because it's just a small entry of a dictionary that you can look up and modify the properties here. So this makes it easier for me to balance it later. So that is the second part of any skill. Okay, so finally, every skill needs a scene. So this scene is basically where you customize things such as the sound effects, the animations, the sprite, the particles, etc. Now this is not really the important part. The important part is the skill script. So the skill script is the script that is shared across every single skill scene in the game. So every time you create a skill, you create the scene and then you attach the script. Now this script is a 800 or so line script that handles every single possible behavior that could exist on a skill. So what happens is the moment you cast a skill, either as a player or as a minion or as a monster, it's going to run a process. So this process is going to take the resource data, the behavior data from the skill, as well as the balance data from the dictionary that I showed earlier. So what's going to happen is going to scale that skill to that level. Let's say you want a level 20 fireball. It's going to go get the level 20 data. It's going to scale the modifiers and so on. And it's going to combine those two, the balance and the resource behavior data, into one singular dictionary that contains everything. Now that dictionary is passed onto this script. Then this script, what it does is basically converts the behavior data of every single property on that resource, on that dictionary, and it's going to actuate on it. So for example, if you have 20% area, it's going to make the scene 20% bigger. If this is a projectile, then it's going to turn on the physics process and it's going to apply a speed towards the direction of the cast. So if it's a projectile that moves at 200, it's going to go 200 speed. Then if it collides with a wall, it's going to check, okay, do you have any wall bounces? If the skill has wall bounces, it's gonna bounce off the wall. If it has any chains, it's gonna chain towards a new enemy. If it's an aura, instead of turning on the physics process, it's gonna attach onto a node on the caster, so it's gonna be attached to it. It's gonna be glued to it. If it's an area of effect that you are targeting, it's gonna spawn it at the target area. It's gonna play the animations and so on. The hitbox of that skill scene contains the data of the damage, right? So for example, you spawn a firestorm at a location, it's going to spawn the firestorm there. The animation of the firestorm is going to be handling the collision, so it's going to turn on at the right time and so on. If you have increased cast speed and the skill depends on the cast speed or the attack speed, the animation speed is going to be faster. So if you are spinning on a spin to win type of skill and you have more attack speed, you can make the animation go faster, so you hit more times per second. It handles things such as minions too. So if the caster is the player and you're summoning skeletons, you're gonna say, okay, how many skeletons you wanna summon? Let's say you wanna summon 2 skeletons at once. It's gonna look for the maximum number of skeletons on that entity, and it's gonna summon them as allies of that entity. So they're gonna be following you around. The same is true for monsters, right? If a monster casts an aura, a damaging aura, it's gonna change its hitboxes and the layers to be able to hit players and their minions, right? So everything basically automated to do all of that. And all of that is basically just using flags and the behavior present on the behavior resource. So that's basically how everything works on a nutshell. Now, of course, it's more complicated than this because I have a lot of behaviors at this point. So instead, I'm just going to show you a couple of skills and how they interact. And I'm going to just basically tell you what it's doing under the hood. Just so you understand multiple different types of skills and how they interact with each other. So let me show you a couple of behaviors here. Okay, so now I'm going to demonstrate a couple of skills. And now I picked the skills because they are different enough functionality-wise from each other. So I can show you the flexibility of the system. The first one is going to be an aura, which is this one. The auras can be attached to the caster like this, and they're going to be affecting all enemies or all allies around, depending on what it does. In this case, this aura is giving me speed. You can see it is attached to me. So that's an aura. That's a simple one. The next one is a minion skill. So right here, I have this summon skeletons. So this is going to summon 2 skeletons, up to 4. They have a duration and they have custom modifiers. Right? You can see the minions are following me because they are allies. You can also see underneath them, that's the effect of the aura being affected, of the speed aura. Now, how do minions work? Like I said previously, it's going to summon X amount up to X amount of summoned ones. So right now I have 4. So if I try to summon 2 more, it's going to kill the other ones. So every monster has a dictionary of summons, which keeps track of what is summoned, right? So right now on the player, I have 4 skeletons. So every time you try to summon more, it's going to kill the oldest ones. And since they are skills, they are killed automatically after a certain duration, right? So that's another example of another thing you can do. So the third one is this magma geyser. So this is a targeted skill. Creates a geyser that shoots projectiles. Okay. Now you may notice that this is 2 behaviors in one. Not only is it a targeted skill that puts a geyser down, the geyser itself is looping every second, right? And increases with cast speed. And what it does is that it spawns another skill on the place. This skill is the fireball. It has a projectile of 3, so you can see it's shooting 3 at a time. It's shooting it at once, and it's picking a random location around its area. So that's a skill inside another skill. And you can modify both behaviors. You can increase the projectile of the rocks and the area of the rocks and the velocity and all that. So that's another example of what you can do. So another one is this one. This is a movement skill. This is a lip slam. So not only is it a targeted one, it creates a skill when it lands, so it actually deals damage. Okay. It has a cooldown. You can see that it has a cooldown there. And every skill needs a certain weapon type or weapon types to function. This one can be used with any weapon. That's a movement skill. This is causing the player to move, or the entity to move towards the target location in a certain speed and whatnot. That's another example. Then I also have certain skills that can only be used with melee, like this one. This is a projectile. You may notice that it has a spiral behavior here. Right? So this is a projectile that when it is spawned, instead of following the traditional direction of the projectile, is going to create a spiral around it instead. Also, you may notice that it has wall bounces. So when it hits a wall, it's going to, instead of disappearing, it's going to bounce back. You may also notice that it despawns. That's because it has a duration. So you can set a duration on any skill and it's going to kill it. So you may have something like this one. This is a skill that spawns at the target location. Right. So this is one of the simplest ones to demonstrate. You may notice that it has a stun chance there added into the data. So you can actually give custom modifiers to this. So I have a couple more here that I could show. This is what I was talking about before. This is a channel skill, a spin channel skill. So if you hold the button, you're going to be hitting, right? The more attack speed you have, the faster this is going to hit, because it's going to be modifying the speed of the animation of the skill. So that's another example there. So now is another cool one that I recently made in this past update that I haven't had the chance to show. So this is a minion skill, but this one targets corpses. So instead of summoning right away, it's going to ask you to have a corpse targeted. What this does is that it revives any monster and it turns it into an ally. So you can see that I revived the skeleton priest. Now what's cool about this is that since this is now an ally, it's now going to, see, the spells that the minion casts are actually affecting me because it affects allies. So in this case, the ally of this minion is myself and other minions. So this is an example of how minions and how the skill system overall works. I have a lot more skills. I have like 50 or so. So I cannot show you everything, right? But you may notice that it just opens a lot of possibilities when it comes to skill design. One last thing that I wanted to talk about is the enhancements. So enhancements is something that I talked about previously a lot, which is a system that allows you to modify skills further and give them more modifiers. So what this does, basically, it adds more modifiers onto the base skill, and it adds them up onto the balance data. So that's all it does. So in this case, you can see this one is shooting 3 projectiles by default, right? The magma geyser. But if you add 3 additional projectiles, sorry, 2 more with this, you might notice that now the projectile quantity jumps to +5. So now when you use the skill, you're going to be shooting 5 at once instead of 3. So that's all it does. I wish I could go more into detail with this, but I think the video is going to be pretty long as is anyway, so I may show this in a different time. So if you have any questions, or if you want to learn even more about this, and I can show you more of the scripts and the inner workings, you can join my Discord, or you can ask on stream. I stream every weekday for like 6 hours, and I do all of these skills and all of this progressing on stream. So thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful to you somehow. You know, the way you organize the skills and the way you structure them. Maybe it gives you some ideas. I think that's it. Take care and see you on the next update in 2 weeks.